Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. The modern release that I want to look at today is Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for the Nintendo Switch. Now I reviewed Breath of the Wild last week and I gave it a glowing review. I absolutely loved that game, so I was very excited about the prospect of a sequel set in the same world, like a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. I was very excited by what they were showing in the trailers. It all looked very, very good and it ended up being absolutely phenomenal. A great and worthy sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now I want to talk about my favorite things about it as well as some of the criticisms I have of the game. So first and foremost, again, this is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, same world and everything. This time Zelda's back. At the very beginning of the game, you trigger a terrible evil. You go into like some catacombs underneath Hyrule Castle and you find this creepy hand stuck to a skeleton. It pops off and of course the skeleton starts going crazy, ends up hurting Link. He can't best the skeleton even with the Master Sword, and he goes down. You find Link a little bit later without his arm that he was using to wield the Master Sword, and instead in place is an alien arm. It's something very different from what he is expecting. He is guided by a spirit that lets him know about the Zonai people, and talks about how this was the spirit's original arm that he gave to Link so that he could save his body, because apparently his arm went like absolutely awful after the thing attacked him, which of course we know is Ganondorf. We'll skip the pretense here. We know this is Ganondorf here. All the promotional materials. The skeleton is Ganondorf. He attacks Link. Link doesn't have enough power. He loses his arm and gets this new one. The Zonai arm gives him so many new abilities that he can use. And what I love about Tears of the Kingdom is that it differentiates itself from Breath of the Wild in a lot of major ways. It keeps the paragliding. It keeps a lot of the open world exploration format, but it gives you so much more in terms of what you can do now. Instead of having things like the remote bomb, the stasis, the ice block, I can't remember the specific name for the ability, you have new abilities that you'll unlock throughout your playthrough. You'll get the Ultra Hand ability where you can pick things up and kind of manipulate them in the air. You have the Fuse ability, which is kind of the premier thing that Tears of the Kingdom touted. It's where you can fuse multiple objects together to make whatever you want, really. This is the builder's paradise here. I also introduced vehicles, so you can like create your own vehicles. You can do presets, and once you unlock the auto build feature, you can like save presets or get blueprints for items that you can auto build them if you have the materials. It's really fantastic. You can also fuse weapons together. You can fuse like items onto weapons. You can fuse items onto arrows. You can do all sorts of stuff to get new status effects for all of your weaponry, making the already really excellent action, in my opinion, even better in Tears of the Kingdom in like major substantial ways. It's actually incredible how much they changed combat by just doing this little thing. And I say little because this is a huge deal, being able to fuse stuff to weapons. But I'll talk about that again in a little bit. You also have the recall ability where you can rewind time. So if you have, I think the very beginning, you have like a gear puzzle and you have to rewind it so you can have it go the right direction so you can get up onto a platform. You can use that to rewind time for any particular items, which is really fantastic. You can change the momentum of things. You also have the Ascend ability, which is a phenomenal idea to get out of little dungeons. They have more dungeon-esque areas in this game, still no traditional dungeons, which I think is a bit of a bummer, especially since Breath of the Wild definitely could have had those and made the game even better than it already is. But there are more dungeony aspects. You'll find like little caves and things. You'll find much more of these than you would have in Breath of the Wild. And as you traverse into the deep dark of the cave, you get to points where you're like, how the heck am I supposed to get out? Well, you have the Ascend feature now, where if you're close enough to a ceiling, you just click the button. It shows a little like circle on the ceiling above you. If you're close enough to it or in a good spot, it will show green, and then you can jump up into the ceiling and ascend through it, which skips a lot of the legwork for getting out of the little dungeons that you do. It's a fantastic idea. These new abilities really sell the game in a major way. Another big feature of the game is that you have much more in terms of scale. It has like the same world as Breath of the Wild, but now you have a sky area that populates most of the region. You don't have it like completely mapped out above you, but you have tons of space in the sky. Probably like 50% of the landmass on the mainland is up in the sky. So you have tons of space to get up there. Once you have some abilities, you can find your way up there. Yeah, there's so much to explore, so many new things to do. And you also have the depths below, which is an entire like doubling the size of the main map on the ground level. So you have so much more to explore in this game. So much to the point that I actually didn't fully finish exploring the depths on my playthrough. I put about as much time into Tears of the Kingdom that I did Breath of the Wild, well over 100 hours, but I didn't feel as compelled to explore the depths to their fullest. And that's my biggest criticism for this game. In Breath of the Wild, I really felt driven to experience everything the game had to offer. The side quests were really compelling and engaging. I was really just driven to soak up everything this world had to offer. For Tears of the Kingdom, I did find a lot of that same enjoyment, but it didn't feel as necessary to me. I didn't feel the need to get out there and do all the side quests, especially in the depths. The depths is dark and dingy, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. It's a very challenging area. There are tons of cool side quests, do not get me wrong. There are some phenomenal, some of the best that you'll see in the entire game in the depths. But it's dark, you have to go to little spots that are kind of like the towers in Breath of the Wild, where you get to them and they light up a certain amount of the area. I did most of these, but again, I didn't do the entire thing because it's just enormous. It's unlocking the map a second time. And it just didn't feel like there was as much to do in the depths as I would have liked. And the side quests down there, the ones that hit really hard, but just exploring it wasn't nearly as fun or engaging for me. Same thing with the sky area. Fortunately, there's not nearly as much to explore. I did unlock all of the sky areas. I did explore every nook and cranny. There are some cool bosses. Some of the notable bosses in this game are the three-headed dragons that you'll find in way back in, I think it was Zelda 2 is when they first debuted. Maybe it was the original Zelda. I can't remember which game it specifically debuted in. And I'm losing the names of them all of a sudden. But they're fantastic. You find these in multiple places, and up in the sky, they're some of the most challenging ones. Those bosses are really, really fun, and finding those is a real treat as well. But there's a lot going on in Tears of the Kingdom in terms of its map, and it's not nearly as compelling as something like Breath of the Wild was. The side quests don't meld as well into the main quest as much as I would have liked, like I really loved in Breath of the Wild, but they are very serviceable for the most part, and when they hit, again, they are very, very good. But let's talk about some of the merits of Tears of the Kingdom here, because the storyline, the main story, is even better than Breath of the Wild. I really liked Breath of the Wild's storyline because it's very dismal. It's very like Link is our last hope, and a lot of people have been waiting for him for 100 years at this point. I loved the ruined kingdom and everything. Everything really worked for me. And Tears of the Kingdom does even better than Breath of the Wild did, in my opinion. I think the trailers really hyped it up to have Ganondorf in his physical body form, because we had Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild. It's nice to see him in his physical form again, and he was terrifying and imposing throughout the entire thing. You unlock memories, and you kind of figure out what's been going on in the last little bit. You kind of surmise what's been happening based on these memories of the King of Hyrule, the original King of Hyrule, the Zonai guy that's been leading you. You get to learn more about Ganondorf and how he came to power. It's really a phenomenal story and really engaging, and the way they brought it all together is fantastic. They made Zelda even more fleshed out character. It's really nice to see more about her. The voice actress did a fantastic job with her yet again. They did a really phenomenal job working the story and doing something new and unique, while also like being a nice direct sequel to Breath of the Wild. I really love what they did. I think this is one of the strongest stories they've ever told in The Legend of Zelda. Because I saw some comment, I think it was on Twitter or maybe it was on YouTube when I was looking at some comment talking about how Tears of the Kingdom has such a beautiful written story. It actually feels like a legend. We forget the legend part. There's a lot of exploration. The adventure is a big part, but the legend of Zelda is one of the bigger things, and I love that. I love some of the other elements of it. I won't spoil anything here. I maybe give you some tiny spoilers, but I won't spoil the rest of it. There's some really deep things that happen in this game. I love everything about how the story progresses. It's just a really well-written story that all comes together at the end. I absolutely adore. Now let's get back to the fusibility. I said I'd talk about this a little bit later. The fusibility is the biggest selling point of Tears of the Kingdom because you have so much that you can do with it. Like I said before, you can fuse items together to make pretty pretty much anything you want. There are some side quests throughout the game where you see this guy holding up a sign. He's like, I can't secure this, but I can't let go, so I'm going to stand here until I die, pretty much. And so you have to help him by like fusing some stuff together, using some materials to help him prop them up. It's a really funny side quest. I love that there are ways to just absolutely break it. There are certain devices that you get. You can like store a ton of these Zonai devices. You'll have like wheels that once you click onto something and you hit it, it'll start turning automatically. You have like little plates you can put that gives you like a steering wheel. You can make giant vehicles, or you can make something as basic as just like a wooden platform with 4 wheels on it or 2 wheels on it, and you can just drive around. It's a really beautiful idea, and the way that they implemented it is absolutely insane. The way that they give you all this freedom to just make whatever you want and break the game however you want is a really beautiful thing. As you get enough of this new like Zonai ore stuff and everything, once you get enough of it, you can trade it in for charges on your Zonai device. It's essentially a battery for you, and you can like use these devices for as long as you have charge. Or after a little bit of like something like flying around, it will disappear. But that's a different thing entirely. It's a really great idea, and the way they implemented it is phenomenal. You can build giant mechs if you want to. If you have the idea for it, you can implement it into the game. You can absolutely go for that. If this is like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts, if it actually works as well as you wanted it to, and as just a side mode. Because for me, I didn't care nearly as much about the building aspect. I've seen some incredible creations online, and watching people do stuff with this engine is absolutely insane. I cannot believe people build the things that they built. But for me, it was a very secondary thing, and the fact that I could ignore it if I wanted to was excellent, because I wasn't as enticed by that. You have certain areas where you kind of need to build things, and they kind of give you all the resources you need, and they kind of nudge you that way, or you can find a blueprint or something like that, which I think is really fantastic. They signpost very well, so now I can build this thing that'll help me get across this obstacle. Or you could build like a little scooter out of a few items that are really basic, and you can actually fly around in the air because of the way that they're built. You position the fans and the wheels in a certain way, and you can just fly around for a long time. I love how people broke this game and made it their own. I love how customizable it is, and I love that you can do a ton, or you can do a little with it and still have a ton of fun with this game. It's just a beautiful idea. And on top of that, you also have the ability to fuse items like weapons to each other. I talked about this earlier. If you fuse like something that has an ice element onto an arrow and you shoot it at something, boom, you have ice arrows. Same thing with fire or a bomb or anything like that. The possibilities are really endless, and it's insane all the things that they thought about. You have stuff like these mushrooms that will confuse the enemies, or do like a puff of smoke, do a giant smoke bomb. They did so much to make sure that combat was so much fun. I just can't believe that they had so many ideas for it. Like I said, I think Breath of the Wild had some of the best combat in all of the Zelda franchise altogether. I think the way that they implemented the breaking items and everything, I think was really smart. And they still have that in this game, but they give you so many more options. Some of the things can just make your stuff more durable, so that you can use it for like almost indefinitely. It's just genius all the ways that they implemented this mechanic into the game, and I can't believe that it works as well as it does. Now, one more criticism I have of this game, the only thing that really holds it back for me, aside from like the side quests being not quite as engaging for me, is the stuttering for me. Sometimes the frames would dip, because this is a very big and ambitious game running on very limited hardware. Breath of the Wild was already kind of pushing the Switch to its limits, and that was a day one game, and it ran for the most part very, very well. Tears of the Kingdom has more scale, and maybe it's a little more polished, so there is a lot more going on, so there are a lot of times where it just randomly lags, and it's like 90% fine. You don't experience it 90% of the time, but the 10% that you do, it's a little annoying. It's a little frustrating. It's not as fun for the experience. It kind of takes you out for just a second. Again, it's not that awful, but 10% is quite a bit for me. So if this was running on a next gen hardware, I think this would be so much better. This would be like the easiest 10 out of 10 ever. For me, it's still a very, very phenomenal experience. I still love this game. I had a great time. I did put over 100 hours into it in a very short period of time. This is still a masterpiece of an experience, but with some improvements, and maybe on new hardware, this would have been even better. I'm surprised they didn't delay this for the Switch 2. If they'd made this a launch title for the Switch 2, I think that would have been crazy, but I think they wanted to capitalize on the fact that they do have so many Switches out in the wild, and it did work. But Tears of the Kingdom sold like gangbusters. I can't remember the exact mark. It was 12 million in the first small window of time. I can't even remember how long it took them, but this game sold really, really well very fast. So I think it was a smart idea to capitalize on how many Switches they had, but I think it would benefit from like a remaster in the future. This is one of the few that I would say like, yeah, I think if you remastered this game for a Switch 2, I'd be fine with that, just so people can have a bit smoother experience. That's my thoughts overall. I'm going to ultimately give Tears of the Kingdom a platinum rank. I think this game is out of this world good. I think it continues the legacy of Breath of the Wild very well. Some people say this is an even better game and better experience. I can see where you're coming from. For me, it's not quite, but I think it's definitely like on the same level in that same tier. So I think a platinum rank is very appropriate. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.